And we're back. Time now for us to get into the stack of newspapers here. Well, not so much of a stack today. It's pretty lean. I guess as Christmas approaches, we'll be seeing some of them falling away and reducing their pages. They'll be going on a diet. But we'll be here and we'll be sharing the relevant stories with you right here. Joining us for the review, I'll announce him shortly. But first off, let me let you know that Endpoint Homeopathic Clinic helps us bring you this segment every weekday without fail, right? And here's what they are offering you. It doesn't end there. They are offering you two things for free, depending on whether you're a male or female, and it's health related. If you're a man, they're offering you prostate screening for free. I don't know about your health maintenance, so to speak, how you check yourself out every year and all that. But it's getting to the end of the year. Don't you think it's only an apt opportunity for you to check your prostate and know what is happening there? It could lead to disastrous health circumstances for you if you don't. If you're a woman, what's the status of your fertility? Do you know? Or for you, it's just about, oh, I'm a woman, I have my normal cycle, everything is right with the world. For all you know, there could be so many things going wrong, which could actually impact your ability to give birth in the future. For you too, Endpoint Homeopathic Clinic is offering you screening for free. Now here's where you can locate them if your interest has been piqued. Here in Accra, they are located at Spintex, opposite the Shell signboard. If you're in Kumasi in the Ashanti region, they are at Kronum Abwehia behind the Angel Educational Complex. There's Anaji Estate in Takrade. There's Community 22 in Tema. There's Techiman, Hanswa, and Esiama and Zama. Their call lines are two. Here they are. 0244 867 068 or 0274 234 321. Endpoint Homeopathic Clinic, the end to chronic disease. But just the start of the news review, it's a pleasure to be joined by development economist and senior lecturer at the University for Development Studies, Dr. Michael Ayamga. He is my guest. Doc, good morning to you. Dr. Ayamga, are you with me, please?
Yes, I am with you. I'm with you.
Great.
You can hear me?
Well, I can hear you now. Initially, I couldn't hear you, but I can hear you now. I see you with your piece of paper and your pen ready to note down what we're going to be discussing. But I'm going to throw the ball into your court first and ask. Over the last week, since we had an interaction, a lot of things have happened, including the SML expose, the 3 billion Ghana cedi lie, among others. Which of these would be the most topical that you'd like to talk about in about a minute and a half before we get into the main papers?
Yes, thank you. Ben, over the week too, I think I was out of the country, but I did get snipers of the discourse, and I was particularly not surprised by either of them. You know, when you live in a society like ours, it doesn't take long before in the inaction of our institutions on corrupt acts and malfeasances become normalized in society. So much as I find these appalling, and it's unbelievable that in a democracy like ours, with institutions that have stood over time, these things still happen. But worse things have happened and nothing has happened, and that is where we are gradually getting to. It's uncomfortable to feel this way, that something the magnitude of $3 billion has been siphoned out of state coffers, and it looks normal to everybody. That is the state of apathy and the state of lawlessness this country is getting to, where you see these things as a part of the process of partisan politicking and part of the rewards for supporting particular political dispensations. The inaction of the institutions is mind-boggling. It's surprising that this is not causing stirs in the various institutions, particularly institutions like the Peace Council, the Council of State, the clergy in the country, and what have you. None is talking about this. And when we seem to be comfortable with these things and not commenting on them, society suffers. And so sometimes I just feel it's a waste of your time to be going into the nitty-gritties of these things when the institutions that ought to be fighting these things take them as a business as usual. But hey, I think that, Ben, if you are in this country and these things are happening, you ought to be very, very concerned with how you spend every CD you get.
We also do know that SML has come through with its own arguments, with a statement, so to speak, on the back of this development, claiming that what was put forward in that documentary, the 3 billion Ghana cedi lie, is not exactly correct. For example, they say the deal worth about $100 million is not for 10 years, but about 5 years. And they go on to talk about even the figures themselves. But a lot of people have called for the OSP to delve into the matter so we can know what is fact and what is fiction. I see Manasseh Azure when they're posting, for example, in recent times, I saw it this morning. Dear GRA, are you saying your hardworking customs officials at the depots and petroleum industry are so corrupt or incompetent that you would have lost 3 billion Ghana cedis if SML hadn't intervened? Where would that money have gone? Even when you don't use SML figures for tax. Okay? So a lot of people are saying that some of what is now emerging is all a joke, all a cover-up. If there's nothing to hide, I'd like to hear from the finance minister on this matter. I'd like to hear more from SML because from what I saw in that documentary, I was not convinced in any way. I'd like to listen to the OSP delve into it. Unfortunately, the OSP doesn't have anything really to show. He's gone through a number of cases. I salute him for that, but no real results about anyone getting incarcerated or anything or suffering any penalty for anything that has been done, from Charles Edubuahin to Cecilia Dapa, well, that is still ongoing, to the Colonel Damwa issue, to whatever. I'm not necessarily declaring them guilty, but I'm only saying the processes and how they were truncated smacks of a whole lot. In the meantime, we're saying we're fighting corruption, and there's NACAP, and now there's even NACAP 2 that we are looking forward to. As a people, I simply do. But thank you for sharing those quick reflections. Let's get into the papers now and digest what they have for us, starting with the Daily Graphic newspaper. Economic zones policy outlined as government baits companies. Then there's also SML. ICOMs fetch over 3 billion Ghana cedis. That's according to the GRA. Ayo. Let's stay in it. MasterCard, MIDA invest $6.1 million in rice value chain project. GJA launches third African media convention. And Supreme Court not populated. Justice Kofi says so. He had a stern in front of the vetting committee in Parliament yesterday. Keep Accra City clean. Henry Quarter to MMDAs, and Gassam Foundation supports Kolebu Children's Cancer Unit. We thank Gassam for that. They have handed over 3,000 bags of cement to the oncology unit of the Kolebu Teaching Hospital to support in the construction of a new ward for children battling with cancer. And that is indeed heartwarming at this time of year. Congratulations, Gassam. You've done what Napoleon couldn't do. And of course, Henry Quarte, the Greater Accra Regional Minister, has entreated metropolitan, municipal and district assemblies to work to ensure that all public places were kept clean at all times, particularly during the Christmas season. But Mr. Quarte, have you gone round and seen what Accra looks like? It's filthy in many places. And the Daily Graphic captured it yesterday. The cleanest city in Africa bit has become a bit of a coarse joke. But then economic zones policy outlined as government baits companies. The government is formulating a special economic zones policy to create an environment to attract domestic and foreign companies to establish their base operations in Ghana. They will typically focus on specific industries or sectors such as manufacturing, technology, or trade, with the primary objective of creating jobs, promoting export, facilitating technology transfer, and increasing foreign direct investment. President Akufo-Addo made this known at the National Awards for Export Achievements in Accra last Tuesday night. It was jointly organized by the Ghana Export Promotion Authority and the Ghana Free Zones Authority on the theme, Recognizing Excellence. driving sustainable export to accelerate Ghana's prosperity. President Akufo-Addo said the government acknowledged the negative effects of the COVID-19 pandemic and the consequences of Russia's invasion of Ukraine and their impact on Ghanaian businesses, adding that, quote, a lot of Ghanaian businesses have been severely hit, some to the extent of folding up operations. Well, that's nothing new that we do not know. And we can keep flogging COVID-19 and the Russo-Ukrainian war. To what end? To what extent? Even I'm sure the Ukrainians themselves have stopped flogging it. They themselves who are in the middle of that war. But coming to you, Dr. Ayamga, I see in here, even as we look at these, to focus on specific industries, including manufacturing, technology or trade, creating jobs, promoting export. I see how a 24-hour economy could feed into this. I don't know what you see. What is your take?
Yes, I have been saying something that the 24-hour economy proposal by former president, now candidate John Dramani Mahama, is a basic framework for which we can think of the broader policy. And if you take, for example, the way we make policies and the way we go on launching programs, they look like a helicopter flying over, dropping relief items, and people are scrambling all over them. There is no trajectory of activities leading to output leading to maybe some processing, packaging, and then using these programs and zones that we are creating for export. You go and you create a free zones policy. You are bringing in industry, and they are now coming to look for what to do. And you come to policy, let's say even at the fiscal level, you don't see it clearly articulated. You don't see it clearly articulated in government's budget. So the linkage between our activities at the micro level and our policies and programs at the macro level are continuously disjointed, and you don't see any benefit from them. They don't feed into the economic activities in the country in order to create employment. So this is just going to be like one of them. In the not too distant past, you saw the minority in parliament advocating for the scrapping of some of these zones and reliefs that you are giving companies who ended up more or less sending all their profits out of the country and leaving no benefit behind. The inability to link these things into activities is a big problem here. So I see the 24-hour economy as one way of identifying points of growth, let's say growth pools, through which we can either support policies, let's say create the incentives, do things to reduce the cost of production, and directly link these to, let's say, micro producers at the base there so that you have that direct linkages. I am not saying that it is a game changer, but I think that it has enough room there to help us expand the size of our economy and increase employment. That is what I see in there. But I'm not optimistic about this commission of another free zones policy, because it is a policy hanging in the vacuum without real content and real planning going on there. You go there and it's language that confuses even the most intellectual people, and you are struggling to find how is this going to feed into the very base of this economy, which is agriculture. How is it enhancing our value chains, and how is it ensuring that much of the proceeds of production, processing and marketing gets fairly distributed so that we don't have inequality at the end of the day. Those are the challenges that we are facing. And I think that before we sign these policies, we must look for the clear cut linkages between the various sectors before we start touting them as opportunities to create growth. I don't see them directly that way because I think they are disjointed.
All right, not properly coordinated then. There's also SML items fetch over 3 billion Ghana cedis That's according to the GRA, reiterating what the Daily Graphic had put up years ago or some time ago about 1 billion Ghana cedis and then 3 billion Ghana cedis. It's been brought into question, but the GRA is reiterating. What I do wonder, though, is, for example, if the leadership of the GRA were to change, would the script be the same? Food for thought. But let's get into that. So the Ghana Revenue Authority has stated that extra revenue gained from the deployment of assurance systems on petroleum storage depots and the single window system have yielded more income for the country in excess of 3 billion Ghana cedis across 2 years. The authority said sensors and real-time data reconciliation implemented by Strategic Mobilization Limited, SML for short, significantly improved revenue collection, and that those systems combined with the integrated customs management systems, ICUMS, led to increased reported volumes from 350 million litres per month in 2018 and 2019 to 450 million litres per month from 2020 and 2021, representing an increment of 33%. The Communication and Public Affairs Department of the GRA, which released the statement in Accra yesterday, said, on behalf of the board and management of the authority, said the improvement represented an extra 100 million litres per month on the average at a levy rate of 1.44 Ghana cedis. The extra revenue, quoting the GRA, variance gained for the 2 years will exceed 3 billion Ghana cedis. This performance is attributable mainly to the introduction of ICUMS and SML systems, the statement said. Ayo, Ghana we day. Like I said, if the leadership of the GRA were to change today, would the new leadership be saying the exact same thing? That's question number one. Have we found out why Finance Minister Ken Ofori-Atta is in the thick of things on this matter? No, I'm not suggesting anything, but where certain things normally would go through certain processes and certain directors, if you have the Finance Minister himself spearheading it and touting SML with a number of things, can we find out about conflict of interest or anything in there? When he takes he seizes the opportunity to personally put pen to paper and sign off on some of these documents, when he singularly says that there's going to be an expansion contract on SML, it gives me a lot of food for thought. And the final one. So the GRA staff, of course, anonymous, that the fourth estate engaged on these matters, who expressed shock, surprise, that SML was making the claims it was making. They were of one school of thought, and now the leadership of the GRA is also of another school of thought. Which one do we take? There's also Supreme Court Judge nominee Justice Henry Anthony Kofi has ordered a contrary opinion on the supposed packing of the Supreme Court, saying it is within the confines of the Constitution. He said while the Constitution gave the minimum number of Supreme Court judges to be not less than 9, it did not give a ceiling, something I think we ought to look at moving forward, because I feel it is being abused, it has been abused, it will be abused. And he said to say that even the United States had just 9 Supreme Court judges, while a small country such as Ghana had 16, could not be properly contextualized. Justice Kofi explained that the U.S. ran a federal system of government where each state had a number of Supreme Court judges, so put together they would be far more. But they are running a federal system. I beg to differ on certain points. They are running a federal system. Recently, we know how the Colorado Supreme Court of that state decided that, look, Trump is not fit to be on the ballot. And now that has been taken to the Supreme Court of the entire Federation of the United States. So I don't know what the reflections are, but in the words of Wuntumi, whom am I? In the words of Wuntumi, or better still, who am I? Anyway, Justice Kofi said this yesterday when he appeared before the Appointments Committee of Parliament for his vetting. What do you make of these two stories, still on SML and the Supreme Court not being populated? Is that what you see, Dr. Ayamga?
Yes, in the case of the SML, you rightly asked the question, if leadership were to change, would we have a different story? And I say no. That is because the leadership that is going to come in is going to be carefully selected and chosen in a manner that they would reinforce the status quo. And that has been the problem, the lack of independence in our institutions, especially over the last 7 years is mind-boggling. I went to the village over the weekend, and I was cracking jokes with my mother-in-law. My mother-in-law told me that if we don't take time, the way we are politicizing everything, very soon you need your party ID card to drive on the road, and there was certain roads you'll be told not to drive to. It was a light note there, but when I was driving home, I said, hey, this old lady could be up to something. And these are the things we are gradually being confronted with. And I don't think it is an issue of the current leadership. It's an issue of those that are above and who are the puppet masters behind the scenes, pulling the strings. These guys are doing the biddings of their paymasters. And some of them get into these places undeservedly and through a series of institutional coup d'etats and short-changing of selection processes. So they are there to do the biddings of other people. And when you have things like this happening, do not expect the numbers to be right. So I agree with you. You asked the right question, but the answer is that even if you were to change the leadership, you have similar scandals, just that there will be new ones. And so that is my view here. On this call, I tend to sometimes agree with the current vice president that if we removed the human element of some of these things and completely automate and digitize them, a certain degree, it could reduce them. But one thing I've realized in Ghana is that the more technology you introduce without integrity, without the moral authority to be an example, the more you create avenues for people to loot. Take the computerized placement system in schools, for example. It has brought in more corruption in school placement than it hasn't. So the bottom line is, yes, we could have averted some of these things if we had robust systems to ensure that the ability of some few people to shortchange the process is curtailed. But then at the end of the day, it has to do with leadership. And if leadership at the top are interested, if you have the finance minister himself at the center of it, be interested in projecting this IT company and advocating for expansion, touting minimal financial increases as fantastic results, then you have to wonder if the minister is there as a strong man, who is going to hold him accountable. We have already seen that even the members of parliament couldn't do anything to the finance minister. The president whipped them into line. So it is safe to think that anywhere you see anything with the stamp of the Honorable Ken Oforiatta in it, you better run for cover. And that is why there's no one talking about it. I think that the minister has to remove himself from this process and allow people to take action, allow due process to go on. You can't be signing off things as minister when there's supposed to be a process. You can't advocate for expansion when there is no due process and no tendering or a policy document that suggests that an expansion is needed. So I think that these issues are worrying, but more worrying is the unseen hands of the minister and the Jubilee House in this issue here. It has to take an anonymous GRA worker. That should tell you how afraid people are in that system to hold the system to account and to speak truth to power. And that is my worry. On the issue of the Supreme Court, you see, it is mind-boggling to think that a nation of, let's say, 35 million requires more Supreme Court than a nation of 100 million or so. So per capita wise, it doesn't make sense. It also has to think about the cost of maintaining Supreme Court justices. Their conditions of service is way up there. And when you are calling for the number of ministers to reduce, the number of government appointees to reduce, you have to extend that discussion to the judiciary. Is it utterly necessary to have more Supreme Court justices at this point in time? Let's leave the legalities aside. From the economics, does it make sense? Can you justify to anyone why we have this number of Supreme Court justices, and we are adding more. And I believe that the 9 could have done the trick, and we only replace if one died or one went on retirement. That is what I felt. It would have brought a lot of confidence in the system. You remember in the before government, when the Honorable, should I say, Chachuchi Kata won a case against government, and all he had to do is pack the Supreme Court again, and then the verdict went the other way. This was one clear example of how the lack of an upper ceiling to the Supreme Court is being manipulated and could be leveraged to thwart the cause of justice. So
right.
I think that if you look at it from the legal perspective and also from the economic perspective, there is no justification why we should have this number of Supreme Court justices. And it's even more worrying why we are added. Unless, and when you are talking about justices, you have to be very careful before you say something that borders on contempt here. But I'm saying that unless some people think that they need to create a certain kind of court before they leave power, are they preparing this country for acquittals when they are finally called to account for their malfeasance and for their misgovernance? And if that is the status quo, what will the next government, when it's about to exit, do?
Exactly. Okay. It raises serious questions. We have just about a minute to go. I want you to quickly digest this. The Business Finder regurgitates the story about SML. World Bank names new country director for Ghana and 2 others. Those are the stories there. But I just wanted you to focus on this story from the Daily Guide newspaper. WASSCE results. Top grades reach record high. And then Belgian new force girl deported. I just want you to look at this. So, you know that in the recent WASSCE results, it's been touted that quite a number fared better. In English, about 3 percentage points better or a little less. And top grades for West African senior school certificate examination results this year have reached a record high, with more than 60% of candidates obtaining A1 to C6 in all core subjects: English language, integrated science, mathematics, and social studies. The results of the 2023 examination, according to a trend analysis of the aggregate percentage passes, are the best in 9 years, 5.79% higher than last year when 63.94% achieved top grades. But my question, how is that reflecting at the next level? We say they're good, right? When they get to the tertiary institutions, how do they fare? You lecture at the UDS. With these students coming in, what do you see? I'd like you to share that in a minute with me, and then we cap off the conversation.
You don't want me to say what I want to say.
I don't want you to say what you're about to say. Please say it. Say it as it is.
I think you read my blog this morning. I wrote on my blog this morning. You see, the issue is we are tickling ourselves and laughing, and the world is not laughing with us. We do not have an examination system in this country. I teach in the university in the last 5 years. The worst students I've seen in my 20 years in the university. And I'm not missing words. You are dealing with guys who came to the university with distinctions, can't take their own notes when you are lecturing, and when you give them notes, they can't copy.
Wow.
And not mince words. This is a league of examination malpractices, not exams. We have the worst examination malpractice in this country. And instead of us to be wondering why students that receive less contact hours without textbooks, stayed in the house most of the time, didn't actually do any serious learning in terms of covering their syllables, get the best results, and we are okay.
And now we're even finding out that some of them managed to use AI, artificial intelligence, of course, with the help of others during the exams, and those have been segregated.
If the students use AI, at least they have learned something they are using to cheat. I'm okay with that. It is up to the teachers to also be able to learn AI and stop students from cheating. So the AI talk doesn't actually bother me. What bothers me is when you have heads of schools calling teachers to come and help. I gave somebody a lift. I was just driving from my house. And then he stopped me around the Yohane roundabout. I should move him to the Abedipele roundabout, if you know Tamale very well. And while I was going, the head teacher called this young man to come and help the students that were writing. The teacher said he didn't have the answers and the questions. He said, oh, they were sending him. By the time I got to Abedipele roundabout from Yohane, the things had arrived. And then he dropped off and then thanked me, and he's going to help. And he complained all the way.
But Dr. Ayamga, did you report this?
I didn't know. I just gave him a lift. And why should I report it? It is a norm. I mean, Ben, you and I live in this country. We know what is happening. The only people that suffer are children from households whose parents are well-standing, and these kids can go and parents that give me money to go and bribe some people to allow me to cheat. They are the ones that suffer. The ones that suffer are the schools who do not have the teachers who can answer the questions and who do not have the resources and the networks to procure answered questions for their children in examinations. So we cannot be touting these results. I'm particularly shocked that when all this was going on, our country was asleep.
Well,
because at the end, we are going to bring people in. Now we are facing a headache to select students. We'll bring the worst possible students into medical school, into engineering. And these are the ones that are going to treat you and I when we finally grow old and we need medical assistance.
God save us. God save us is all I can say. But thank you, Doc. We have to leave it off at some point. Dr. Michael Ayamga, we're grateful for your time. He's a development economist and senior lecturer at the University for Development Studies. He joined us for the news review. We're ending with Endpoint Homeopathic Clinic. They're offering you prostate screening for free if you're a man, fertility screening for free if you're a woman, and they are in Accra, Spintex, opposite the Shell signboard, Kumasi, Kronoma here, behind the Angel Educational Complex, Takrady Energy State, Tema Community 22, Techiman Hanswe and Siamanzama. Their call lines 0244 867 068 or 0274 234 321. Endpoint Homeopathic Clinic, the end to chronic disease. Sports is up next. Yesterday, Barcelona beat Almeida, among others, but the real test, you know, with Napoli. Anyway, all of that coming up in sports. Do stay.